Hello and welcome back to All the Gear, Some Idea. Now today you join me in my newest purchase, which is an Audi Q3 2012 2-litre TDI. Now I've bought this car essentially as a non-runner. Um, it's been to a garage by the previous owner and it's been diagnosed, but they just didn't want to spend the money because they were being quoted, I think it was £4,000 for the repair. So I have taken it on, bought the car really cheap. I wouldn't be surprised if this was the cheapest Audi Q3 in the country. And they've diagnosed it as a turbo. Now, sometimes these can throw up turbo faults, and it's not the turbo itself that is faulty, it is the actuator that sits on top. Now, that is a repair kit that you can buy, and I was hoping it was going to be that. So I just said, I'll pay you for the car, I'll come and collect it. So we went with the car trailer, picked up the car, and obviously here it is. Didn't really look around the car, just it started, so it did drive onto the trailer, and that was about it. Didn't sound too great. Um, it's lacking in power a lot. So taking it off the trailer and bringing it in here, it struggled quite a bit. So I have used to start with the OBD11 because it was to hand, not endorsed by them at all. Just literally, I own one, and it made sense to use it as Lee had the scanner. So this is giving me the same fault as what the scanner is showing, which you can't see. And at the moment, it's given me an exhaust gas recirculation circuit fault, a P040300. Now, I was like, oh, this is interesting. How they diagnosed it as a turbo and not a EGR, if that is the case. Upon further inspection and doing a little bit of diagnosis myself, the turbo has had it. So what's happening is the turbo is essentially seized, and where it's seized, you can spin it by hand, and I will show you when the turbo is off what I mean by this. But it does move slightly, and I believe what's happening is it's starting, but the actual exhaust gas recirculation circuit isn't seeing enough flow by looking at the airflow meter to see how much air it's dragging in. It's saying, oh, there's a fault here because it's not, it just sees it as a fault for the exhaust gas recirculation. So fingers crossed that is the case, and by fitting a turbo to this, we've got ourselves a fairly cheap Audi Q3. Now, I would show you around the car at the minute on the outside. However, it looks like it's been sat for a little while. Now, it does have MOT, so once it's done, it can be driven on the road. It looks pretty good. There's a few dings, there's a few scratches. It needs a bit of love, and that's what we're going to be doing. So I have got a new turbo for it. So let's fit the turbo, and then hopefully it will all be good. If I will show you bits of me doing the turbo, and hopefully we can get rid of this exhaust gas recirculation fault. Otherwise, I'll be doing an exhaust gas recirculation cooler as well, the whole unit on that. So yeah, once that's all done and I can give it a quick little clean, I will then show you around the outside of the car and other little bits that need to be done. Also going to do an oil change once the turbo's been fitted, as if there's any bits of the bearing that is in the oil, obviously we want to get that changed, and it says it's due. So we will do that. Okay, so here is the engine bay of the 2-litre TDI. It's a CFFB engine. So it's exactly the same engine that's fitted in the Golf, apart from the Golf has a metal manifold and a motor on the side, which this does not have. So it's slightly different, but it is pretty much the same. So the turbo is here, attached to the DPF. I have been lubricating the studs up and the nuts up and all that sort of stuff, and there's a temperature sensor that sits down in the manifold itself down there. They can be a pain in the ass to get out, so we may have to go and buy a crayon. If you know that trick, perfect. If you don't, we may have to give it a go, but we will give that a go when we need to. So what we need to do first is remove airbox, this, remove the DPF off the back. I'm probably then going to jack it up and go from underneath for a little bit, but I will have the GoPro going on a time lapse, so hopefully that will help. So let's crack on with this turbo. Okay, so hopefully you've seen by the time lapse that we no longer have a turbo fitted. It's been quite easy so far, to be fair. Everything's been undone. I have pulled a muscle trying to undo some bits. The exhaust is a bit of a pain because the mount is a bit crap, but I've managed to get it off, so I'm hoping that I can get the mount off and put new nuts and bolts in for the clamp, and we'll be all good. I've dropped a few nuts and bolts on the subframe, so I need to move the DPF out of the way to be able to see where they went. There's a bolt that goes through here for the DPF, two at the bottom, and then the clamp up here. Pull that off. Two 13s down there. Once again, move that. Two 13s for the exhaust clamp. Then this is all sort of movable, so you've got room to get to the manifold, which is attached to the turbo. The rest of it is pretty simple. Oil feed, oil return. That's on the floor at the moment, but that just sort of goes underneath. There's a bolt that goes through that holds it to the turbo, which I'll show you in a second. But let's get to the good bit and see exactly what went wrong with this turbo. Okay, so we have the turbo. This is the intake side, and I was a little bit worried when I started to actually remove bits off of it, as I'm sure eagle-eyed viewers can see exactly what is missing from this turbo. There's supposed to be a nut that sits on the end of this turbo. The nut isn't present unless you do this, and there she is. So the nut has fallen off, and luckily got wedged in the turbo, so that'll be the reason why it is not moving freely by my hand. So as you can see, I physically cannot move it here, and it just about moves around, but it's really hard. So that'd be the reason why the turbo isn't working. However, if I tickle the back, you can hear something isn't attached. So let's show you that now. Okay, so this is the exhaust side. So what's happened there is that nut has come off the end of the intake side, I believe the impeller, and then it has essentially wedged itself in to the turbo itself. That has then locked up this side of it, and because this was still spinning, I believe it's then snapped the cartridge bit inside. So that would be why we have no turbo. And that's also why when you start it, it makes a horrible rattle noise and then will stop when it stops trying to activate the wastegate, or the variable vane, should I say. But yeah, I need to get the other one out of the box, and I've not actually checked it yet, which is a silly thing to do. Normally I would check both, but at the same time, this needs to be removed anyway. So as you can see, it's been removed. We can see what the fault is, and luckily that nut hasn't ended up somewhere in the intake system. Now, I'll be surprised if it made its way through, but one thing I do know I need to do is try to drain the intercooler, as when I removed the pipe that sits, where is it? This side, this your boosted air, oil was pouring out of there. So I need to drain the intercooler as well to make sure we're not going to have it run on when we start driving it. Also, after doing this, I need to do a DPF regen because it looks like oil has got into the exhaust. But I do need to make sure that we are covering all bases and that we don't then blow the engine up. It is manual, so it will be possible to stall it, but I'd much rather not get into that situation. But yeah, let's now unbox the new turbo and hopefully we have a match. Okay, so this is the box with the new one in. I've got to fill the warranty card out myself, which is in the paperwork that I need to send the other one back with. But if we keep on digging, we should find the turb ski. There we go. And we have got seals and gaskets, which is lovely. Some new exhaust studs and everything. A new exhaust gasket. And then the turbo. So I'm going to grab this out, unwrap it, and we'll have a look at it. There she is. Lovely. So it is still a Borg Warner, I believe. Yeah, so they are the same turbos. So now what I need to do is swap over some of this heat shielding stuff to this one, so make it so that anything that this one needs is taken from this one now, and then we've got a nice turbo to fit to it. What we need to do is find a syringe and pre-fill the turbo with oil, and then when we go to start it, we need to make sure the engine doesn't start, and we can just build the oil pressure up and go from there. Okay, so the turbo is in and the car has been ran. Oil's in, new filters in. However, upon starting it, the fault is still present, which is the fault for the exhaust gas recirculation system. So I am going to have to change the EGR cooler and valve. So let's crack on with that now. So I'll hopefully be able to put a time lapse in now of me removing the EGR cooler. Okay, so as you can see, hopefully with that time lapse, the EGR is now out, and I can kind of show you what I found wrong with it. So to start with, this was seized, so I could get my finger on it, but it would not move. So I managed to get a screwdriver in here against what this pipe here is, the exhaust pipe, and I managed to free that off. So that now works. However, turning it over, there's a little plastic cover that sits on this side. So this is on the measured values is stuck at about 55–60%, which looking at it is probably about where it's sat right now. So it does move in and out that way, but it physically, I cannot with my hands get it to close in this way. So I'm going to get a screwdriver and see if we can move it myself. Okay, so with a screwdriver, I have actually just managed to free it off. However, I've got a new one there, so I'm going to keep this one just in case. Now it might potentially work. Now it's all freed off, but we are going to fit a new one. So inside there's like a plunger that sits in there that will then be inside here. Okay, so even though that is slightly annoying that I've managed to free the other one off, I still think it's worth fitting the new EGR. Now I did ask the chap in GSF car parts how many of these they have returned, and he said not many, which is a good sign because a lot of them used to be that they'd be returned quite a lot. Here we go. So the faces look pretty good. That probably moves more than the other one actually moves, which is lovely. Got the motor here with a protecting cap on it. 6-pin plug with 5 pins. Turn it over. There's the part number that I'm using. And there's that cover that I was talking about that I've taken off the other one. So when it's fitted, this side sits on the block. And unfortunately, you just cannot get in there. I managed to get the cover off, but I couldn't physically do what I've just done. I suspect if I could have done what I've just done, I'd have been able to make it work. You also get some new gaskets in there, which is nice. They're the ones that make up to these two here. I had to go to Audi and return the oil that I bought as I was given the wrong oil. So what I've also done is ordered a new oil pipe for the return line for the turbo, as I didn't like the one that came with the turbo. So that's here somewhere for me to put back on. So yeah, let's get this fitted and hopefully get a time lapse on the go, and you can hopefully we'll have a working Audi Q3 in a couple of hours. Okay, I hope you can see, but that is a new cooler and valve fitted. Now it's just a case of dropping it down and reading the faults. Okay, so that is now the EGR fitted with a turbo. Obviously, wasn't planning on doing the EGR at the beginning of this video. However, It did have a fault in there for the EGR. It was just, we knew the turbo was knackered. So we've now done both. So I'm hoping when I start it now, it doesn't go into limp mode. So what I'm going to do is, I'm currently in the computer. We've still got the fault which was stored, which is the P040300. Now we also know that EGR was seized. I knew that the vacuum part of it was seized, and when we took it off, the other part was then seized. And annoyingly, yes, I've managed to free that off. But is it worth putting it back on again? Probably not. Is it worth keeping? Probably. So I will keep that one. It's not a exchange unit. The turbo is, need to send that one back. What I want to do is clear the fault, start it. Fingers crossed we have no faults. And then I need to check there's no oil leaks, because obviously we've had everything apart again. So you've had the oil lines off, the oil feed lines. Now, when I went to Audi to return the 020 oil that I was given and I needed 530 oil, I did get a brand new gaskets for the turbo, which I think I've shown in the previous bit, because the ones that supplied with the turbo are just paper gaskets, and they're an absolute pain to sort of line up when you're trying to put the feed back in again. So what we're going to do is ignition back on, and we're going to clear the codes. And while we're in here at the moment, we're going to reset the service light, as the service is showing it's due, and obviously we've just done an oil change, so we're going to tell it we've done that. We're going to just check the codes again, just in case there's any more codes in there. Now, there shouldn't be anything, so we've got no codes, which is perfect. That means everything that's been unplugged is plugged back in again, and there's, everything is reading okay. If I left the EGR unplugged, it would give me an open circuit fault right now. So we're going to come back out of that, and we're going to then go down to service interval reset. It's then going to ask me engine off, ECU on. So reset oil change service intervals at the top. We're going to do that now. So now when I turn the ignition on, it's not going to keep coming up saying the service is due. Now, fingers crossed this is fixed, as I've got a few other things I need to do to it. The sun visor you can't see, the clip is broken. Now, I had that in my hand sometime in the last couple of days to change that. And there I put it. So when I tidy everything up, I will find it. I've also got a genuine pollen filter that needs to be fitted, as the car doesn't smell very nice. I was meant to go and get some cleaning stuff, but haven't had a chance yet. So that might be something that I do over the next couple of days, and it will be included in the video because I still want to do a walk around of the car because we've not seen it yet. So, moment of truth. Well, that's a good start. Before, the glow plug light would have come on and it was flashing. So while the engine is now on, we're just going to reread the engine faults just in case. This is a CFFB, I'm sure I've mentioned that before. Once it's warmed up a little bit and I've checked there's no oil leaks coming from the return pipes on the turbo, I'm going to refit the under tray and top the coolant level back up, as I've had the cooler itself has been off. I did clamp the pipes off. I'm hoping that the time lapse has worked enough that you can kind of gather what I've done. Go to engine management. So I will use this again later on to code some stuff into the car. No codes. We have fixed it. So definitely the turbo, as you've already seen. It just needed an EGR system at the same time, unfortunately. I do believe the reason for the turbo failing is the failed EGR system, where it's stuck at about 55–60% open. What it's done is it's allowed loads of exhaust gases to continuously run itself into the intake system, sort of back into the intake. That will then heat up everything. All the intake temperatures get hot, and essentially could fry the turbo as it's getting too hot. So yeah, that might have been the reason why. Is that the bloke I bought it from just said it needs glow plugs. It didn't need glow plugs. It just needed an EGR system. But because it's a glow plug light, a bit of confusion there. So what I need to do now is, like I say, check the oil leaks. Once I'm happy that everything is good, I need to do a DPF regen to try and get the oil that will be in the DPF out so it doesn't ruin it. So right now, put you on pause, and then I'm going to go check for some oil leaks. I'm not sure if the camera can see it, but it's a bit smoky, obviously where oil has been going into the exhaust. So we're trying to burn all that off, and we have to do a DPF regen. So I've got up to temperature, and the scanner has now asked me to allow it to idle. Braking clutch, release, release, now active. We'll now be doing a DPF regen. So the fans are now on where it's doing the regen. It's now having a little barbecue, burning that oil off and doing a DPF regen as it had 20 grams of soot in there. So hopefully we can get that down to quite a good low amount so we have a DPF in good condition. So while the DPF is going to be regened, I'm going to change the pollen filter at the same time so I can monitor what the car is doing in case I need to turn it off and grab my fire extinguisher, or if it starts to run on for some reason I can chuck it in gear, slam the brakes on and do it that way. Jeez, that's not been changed for a very long time. So it's still a genuine one, so let's get the new one put in. So that is the new one placed in. Just need to get the cover on, like so, and then put this back on and we'll check up on the DPF regen. That is really hot. You could definitely fry an egg at 602 degrees before the DPF and even at 450 after the DPF. So that is really hot. Still doing its regen. You can see that soot load measured is dropping off massively and really quick. Now I'm going to hazard a guess that that's not actually soot that it's burning off, that's oil that it's measured as soot, and that is why it's dropping off so much. When you've got it's smoking so much, so that should drop right off, and then once that's off the smoke should stop. Okay, so we have now obviously fitted EGR, we fitted turbo, we've done service, DPF regen, given it a quick little clean so the outside looks a little bit better. However, now it's MOT, no it's MOT'd already, but it's taxed, it's insured, and we're going to go to Halfords and get some more cleaning products. So I thought, what better way than to sort of take you with me on its first test drive. So I've just driven down the road and set the camera up. But yeah, it's running. It doesn't seem to have any problems at the moment. Touch wood. It feels like the steering wheel might be slightly loose, not the steering wheel itself, but maybe a track rod or a tie rod end that's seen better days. But yeah, it's very hot today. It's 30.5 degrees, so having the aircon turned down a little bit for the camera is pretty hot in here, especially being black as well. But yeah, as far as an Audi Q3 goes, for the price I paid for it, pretty happy. So let's go get these cleaning bits, and then hopefully I can set up the GoPro to do some sort of time lapse, to do a little clean with the car. I know there's been a lot of time lapses in this video, but if you've got a little bit of know-how and you get offered a car that's fairly cheap, why not give it a go? Especially if there's already videos out there on how to do turbos on these and the EGR systems and stuff. All I've really done is a bit of more research into, hopefully, fingers crossed, the EGR system is good, and so is the turbo that I've fitted. Now, I think half the reason why the turbo has failed is through no real fault of the turbo. The guy, I don't know if I've mentioned this already in the video, but the guy who I bought it from, he had told me when I picked it up, he said, oh yeah, obviously the turbo's been diagnosed, but I think it needs some glow plugs as well as the glow plug lights on the dash. Now, that's all well and good, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the glow plugs that are at fault. I'm sure I've mentioned all of this, but because it's stuck open, it's just recirculating hot gases into the turbo through the engine. It gets hotter and hotter, and I feel that's probably the reason why. I'd imagine he's driven it for a while with that EGR system. Yeah, cheers. Sort of faulting, but yeah, hopefully take it back, give it a clean, and then I'll be able to take it out and show you around the car. One thing that I really need to get sorted, which is kind of one of the reasons why I'm going to Halfords, is to get rid of the smell. It's basically been used as a dog car, and you can tell. I've tried having the windows open and it's just not right. So I'm going to get, it's called an X fogger. I used it in the A6 before I sold that. If you're not aware, A6 is gone. And yeah, that worked pretty well in there. Didn't smell too much of dog in my actual car, but it's just one of those smells that is not very pleasant to smell. I still haven't done the flap, the sun visor clip, but I did find it, so I can do that later. Very easy to change. Okay, so that was the first drive. Still getting up to temperature, was a bit weird, so it might have a slight little airlock in there from where I've drained the cooling system for the EGR. So I'm going to take that into carriageway after, give it a little blast down there, check the coolant out before I leave. But let's get some cleaning products, get back, give it a proper clean, and then we'll do a little walk around. Okay, so the final thing to do is replace the clip for the sun visor. I managed to get this one from Amazon for about £2. It doesn't feel as good quality as what the original one was, and it is a different colour slightly, but I'm pretty sure for the price I'm going to be okay with that. So just going to wedge that in there and pop that down, pop that out. And then you have a small and a big, but it will only go in one way. Like that. There we go. Okay, so that's that now fitted. We're going to go for a little drive and then find somewhere where we can do a little walk around the car, show you what the outside looks like. Okay, so we have now finished cleaning the Q3 and been on a little drive, and now you can see the outside. So it looks pretty, what we'll do is switch the camera around and then hopefully do a nice walk around, but it looks pretty good now we've cleaned it. I think I've got some photos of what it looked like roughly before. There's a few scratches on it, but let's have a little look. Okay, so this is the outside. Paintwork could do with a bit of a mop. There's a few blemishes and scratches in random places. Also got a crack in the front bumper, which is here, so hopefully in a future video I'll be able to remove the bumper slightly and be able to use my repair kit I've got that will be able to glue it from behind so it won't look as bad. Got a mark here as well, a few scratches and another mark there. That will need to be sorted for the MOT, as that would be classed as a dangerous point. Got good tyres on it, but yeah, overall it's a pretty tidy car for the money that was paid. So I haven't gone into any sort of detail of pricing on the car as of yet, but as you can see inside, it's all very nice. The smell seems to have gone as well, the dog smell. Can't really smell anymore, but you've got, you know, it's a pretty nice place to be, and I think it's a nicer place to be than the Mark 6 Golf that I've got, which is also a 2-litre TDI. Boot wise, it's a pretty big boot for a car that's probably the same-ish size, probably a little bit longer than a Golf. Drives like a Golf. It's a Golf underneath pretty much, just jacked up on steroids. So yeah, we jump in. So 131,000 miles. It's not got navigation, but it is able to have it if you wanted it. But everything else works. Auto headlights. And the aircon works as well, which is a bonus. Okay, so that's been me pretty much fixing a broken Audi Q3 with a faulty turbo and a faulty EGR valve that is now sorted. Go do a few more miles on it just to confirm that everything is all okay. Now, we haven't really gone into how much I've paid for the car, but I did pay for it broken £800, which I believe is probably the cheapest Audi Q3 that you'll be able to buy. Yes, it was broken, but with a few parts, it should work out as a nice little car. So hopefully I've been of some kind of help to somebody, whether you've got that fault code or you're just interested in watching a video of a car being fixed. Please do drop us a like, comment and subscribe to our channel. It does mean a lot. We're very close to 1,000 subscribers at the moment. I know we're sort of cars, bikes, pretty much anything, but if we're of any interest, please do. So yeah, that's it for this video, guys. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.